Now, my presentation is seeking to build on the presentation that was done by our colleague from UNESCO, but bring it into the Caribbean regional context and of course, particularly on the challenges of small island development state. Just to give a bit of an introduction, of course, on the work of ECLAC, we do quite a bit of varying work on the areas of sustainable development and priorities for development in the Caribbean region, and just to share as an introduction of the work that we do. One of which, of course, is the focus on priority areas, and in this regard, as we would all agree, water and water resources management is a priority for the Caribbean countries. My presentation will reflect on the regional water dialogues that were held during the first quarter of this year and starting from last year that led into the input for the global document. We will focus on the freshwater resources management for the Caribbean, and of course, how are we working towards achieving the objectives of the SDG. During our regional water dialogue, and this is for all of Latin America and the Caribbean, the member countries of the region identified 4 pillars and 4 areas of work that are priority work for water resources management in our region. And these 4 are to provide safe drinking water and sanitation. And of course, it was mentioned before on availability of fresh water, as well as, of course, our challenge on wastewater management. To ensure that water and water supply equitable and affordable, and of course, with the tagline, leave no one behind. We need to safeguard our water in quantity and quality, and of course to reduce the growing negative externalities. And for example, it was mentioned on water pollution that affect our quality and quantity of water, and of course to encourage moving to a more circular management of our water resources with the familiarity of the reduce, recycle, and reuse. So these regional priorities that were identified informed on ECLAC contribution towards the World Water Development Report. For this region, and borrowing down further into the priorities of our region, these areas were identified, linked in partnership with the Sustainable Development Priorities, of course, climate impact and climate variability, financing and health, education, capacity building, and of course, communication and awareness raising, having a wider regional and territorial approach and cooperation to water resources management, the linkages with energy, food, and our natural systems, data management, particularly to have informed decision-making, and of course, the lessons learned during the lockdown periods of COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, being prepared for any other events of similar magnitude and nature. With respect to sustainable development, the dialogue identified areas that have to be addressed, institutional strengthening, the linking of the water with all sustainable development goals, and for the Caribbean, the priorities for the Caribbean small island development states, the design and the implementation of policies that foster economic development, link and interlinked with water security, and in particular with focus on our rural and coastal communities. The promotion of water legislation and increased private-public involvement, and the incorporation of gender and active participation of our most vulnerable groups and our youth. Climate management and climate change management must be an integral part of the water resources management. And this is cannot be said more than it has been said before. We must link both because of our particular vulnerabilities to hydroclimatic event and the impact of climate change. We must coordinate with all communities for early warning and response system. As you'd see, our first impact of hydroclimatic event are our most vulnerable communities, and early warning response systems would be a key in reducing such impact. We must innovate and adopt the technologies, and these technologies have to be applicable, usable for small economies, small island development states, to adapt to the changing environmental, including climatic condition. And of course, we have lots of lessons that we can learn from our leaders, and of course our past experience, ancestral knowledge, our indigenous communities, coastal and local communities, using their lessons learned towards the objectives of water resources management. And many times we came across the opportunities for rainwater harvesting, and particularly for use of non-potable agriculture and other activities that will reduce the demand from water that comes through as potable water. Another area of work is the water and financing and health, that link of water and health. And we have to be investing more in water quantity, quality, and of course, continual supply. Innovation, as I mentioned before, the promotion of partnership, and as was mentioned, the accessing of funding. And it was interesting to see, for example, the work of the Green Climate Fund and maybe other fund mechanisms that focus on various aspects of sustainable development, and how can we infuse and how can we bring water and water resources management into this matrix of decision making. Regional and territorial cooperation, and we know for the Caribbean region, there are many intergovernmental bodies that have sustainable development, including water resources management, under their portfolios. And of course, how further can we bring this into action that will support the further implementation of this area of work. And we know for our region, we need to harmonize political systems, legislative systems, institutional systems, so that we can have a common position on water resources management. Water, energy, food, and ecosystems. Again, we need to have greater integration across these three areas. We need to protect and restore essential ecosystems for the water cycle, electricity generation, particularly for those countries that are moving more into hydroelectric systems, food security and nutrition, and adequate, of course, monitoring of these interrelationships. And again, the message that we got in the dialogue with our stakeholders, our member countries, that there are many lessons in the region that we could reflect on rather than redesigning new systems as the way forward. So we have to reflect on the many lessons and experience we have with our local communities on addressing water resources management as part of the sustainable development priorities. Data management. Data is essential, necessary for making informed decision making across all sectors and across all stakeholders. And this again was seen as one of the areas for priority as we address water resources management in a sustainable manner. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, education, capacity building, communication, and awareness raising. We have to look very closely at where our resource base, our human capacity base is across all areas of discipline to support sustainable water resources management. So in our analysis, we identified areas, for example, hydrological engineering, hydrogeology and water resources management, our environmental management areas of expertise, economics, natural resources, and of course, the persons and the skills that we need to bring this together as a collective whole. Communication and awareness raising to all sectors and all communities. And of course, the strengthening of our citizen education towards empowering for wastewater management. We mentioned lessons from COVID-19 pandemic, and the takeaway from this is to have stronger policies supported through, of course, our ministerial and institutional coordination, so that we are best prepared for another, if there another similar situation, if so arise. Ladies and gentlemen, I add this bit here as we, as the Caribbean region, forge forward to our sustainable development priorities. And for our Caribbean region, we are focusing right now on the preparation of the 4th International Conference of the SIDS. And it is an opportunity for the region to position very strongly the important area of work for water and water resources management. As the country reflects on the 10 years of the SIDS Accelerated Modality of Action, referred to the Samoa, and as the region also prepare on what we will want as a region, as small island development states in the 2024 and it takes us into 2034, the next 10 years of the Samoa pathway. The SIDS Sustainable Development Agenda. I think it's an opportunity for all of us to reflect on really carving a specific directive for the region on the water and water security management. And I just want to say the first SIDS was in Barbados in the Caribbean, and the next SIDS is after 30 years, we are back in the Caribbean, and the 4th International Conference is earmarked to be hosted by the government of Antigua and Barbuda. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this opportunity to present on behalf of ECLAC, and I pass you back to the chairs. Thank you very much.